I staying on here? It's going on to the Facebook. Just staying here.
It's going on the Facebook.
All right, but we'll be here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we're live. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We launched today. I'm going to take a few minutes and give folks a minute to get in, and then we'll get going. All right, people are coming in slowly but surely, Marcus.
Okay. I can't see that, can
I can see.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just see this little Becky.
Mm-hmm. So we'll just hang out here. As I say, oftentimes, there's this moment that you think, I hope somebody comes to my party.
Right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Thank you, Chrissy. I appreciate that. And thanks for all your help in getting us together to go, getting us to be able to launch. Thanks for being here.
I have been there when you need support. I've been, doing reading sometimes. You're like, boy, I hope somebody will come. You're tough sell to, read the people.
Give folks a few more minutes. All right, there we go. So it's 5:05, which why don't we go ahead and get started? Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Stacey, host of Being the Dot podcast, and I am thrilled to say that we have launched today. That the podcast is now available on 3. Woohoo! Applause it around. On 3 different platforms: iTunes via their podcast app, and Google Podcasts via that app, as well as Stitcher. And so whatever of those 3 tickle your fancy, we encourage you to go there and subscribe, rate, and review. That would be very, very helpful to the podcast and to getting the word out and helping our folks to be able to thrive, not just survive. So today we're fortunate to have one of our guest daughters with us, Professor Marcus Burke. Marcus's episode, The Angry Black Man, was part of the 3 that we downloaded to present to you as a premiere episode. In fact, I believe that he was among the first people that I interviewed. One of the interesting things that I thought might be valuable to talk with Professor Burke about was that we interviewed each other. I interviewed him prior to the George Floyd murders. And we had a little bit of conversation. And what he said to me was he had some more to say. And so he's had an opportunity to listen to his episode, and we'll get him to respond to that, and then we'll take it from there. Right. So, hi, Marcus.
Hi, Dr. Stacey. How you doing?
I'm great. It's great to be able to talk with you again.
Indeed.
So why don't we start with, you had an opportunity to listen to your episode.
I did.
Did you? Thank you for that. Any reactions or thoughts about it?
I think the episode came out great, and I stand by everything I had to say.
That's good. I'm glad about that.
I think it's interesting though that this all happened before the George Floyd thing, right? And we were talking about in the podcast how white rage is the beginning of social change, right? And it's just funny because the episode that I did was on the myth of the angry black in general, woman, black man. And, Martin Luther King said it, right? The most dangerous amongst the whites are the moderate whites, right? And those are people that I call them, well-meaning liberal racists. Like the people that, they have the Obama sticker and, they
Did you say well-meaning liberal racist?
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right. And we're off to the races. I love it.
But the kind of person when you tell them that they're racist, now all of a sudden they're shocked when the fragility thing comes. But I think that really what is interestingly at work right now is that because of social media and all of our technology, we're bombarded with these incidents now. It's like at a overwhelming rate. And that moderate class that could almost ignore the parts of struggle or engage with the struggle when it was convenient can no longer look away. It's too pervasive now. And so I think in an interesting way, you see in which, there's not just Black people, but there's white people that cannot calm down right now about the way that this is going. And I just think that it's an interesting thing because, in a certain sense, it's like, welcome, welcome because,
welcome home.
Yeah, welcome to the party, because that's where I say I feel like this moment is demystifying the myth of the angry Black, because there's people that are not Black that can't calm down. So now just imagine, this condition is now being televised, but it's not for it not going on. And I think that's very interesting to see the way that the social movements have kicked up, because accountability seems to be the name of the game right now. And I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing as well. So, it's the revolution will not be televised, but a little bit. Will Smith said, I saw a quote that he said that racism hasn't increased; it's just being filmed.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So I want to encourage people that are watching with us to be sure to throw a question or a comment, a question in the comment section or a comment. Professor Burke is open to answering your questions, as am I. So Amanda Gillette says, "Hi, Dr. Stacey. Nice to meet you, Professor Burke. I'm a creative writing student at Susquehanna, and we talk about you often. So excited for this conversation." Amanda Gillette is my podcast intern. And she's our social media intern, and she has been killing the game. Do you hear me?
Okay, well, hello.
Yeah. Indeed. So when you think about this summer, and one of the things that you shared with me was that this was the summer of anger for you. When I said, "Hey, you want to come back on?" and you said, "Yeah, I'm can you unpack that for us and for the listeners at all?"
Well, I mean, I think I said it to you as the summer, I guess, as like a contained moment. I feel like in general, we had spoken the podcast about Baldwin saying, kind of something to the effect of any, aware Negro is kind of finding yourself enraged at all times, something to that effect. And
so it's something like, to be Negro and conscious in America is to live in a constant state of rage, but the trick is to not be destroyed by it.
Right. And I think to a certain, I don't know, I feel like one of the biggest things that bothers me about how prevalent these things are is that I feel like it is desensitizing America to seeing Black people being murdered. And, it's not like these things are contained where they take the stuff offline. Like, you can go and watch them all. And to me, it's just like black snuff films. And so when you have things like that going on, how don't you become agitated? Because there's a movement going on, but on the other side, there's a regularizing of seeing Black people's lives being taken. And there's already a precedent for dubious justice.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting kind of thing, because I heard somebody talk about it as murder porn.
Mm-hmm. I would say so.
Mm-hmm. So where were you when you heard about the George Floyd videos? The George Floyd murder, not the video, whatever, but the murder.
Well, really, I had woken up and I didn't know what I was watching. It was on a scroll, and so I started watching it. And the longer I watched it, the more I was like, I was expecting at some point that this man was going to take his, at some point I was expecting like this was a bad situation, but it was going to, at a certain point. And I was just baffled when, you can see in the video, his life leaves him. And all the cops had to say was, don't do drugs, kids. It just, the level of inhumanity there just already lets you know. In the video, in the podcast, I was talking about kind of the bafflement of how real hate is. And I think in that video, if you look at the cavalier look on that man's face, had his hands in his pockets.
Shades on his head.
He felt like that was appropriate behavior. And that to me that's when you are blinded by hatred. And so it just plays out in your subconscious, and that's exactly what happened.
So what was your reaction?
I will say that video of them all was one of the most enraging. I would say after I saw that video, I, in no uncertain terms, knew there was going to be violence.
You mean in the streets?
Yeah, I felt like there was definitely going to be some looting going on.
So how did you manage it?
I went to some marches. I went to some protests. But I also realized that this is a very long and complicated process. And so I think the signaling is cool. The propaganda is cool. We can spray paint BLM on things and everything, but until there's real change in terms of policy, in terms of the way that we're actually given equal access, equal opportunity, I'm curious about this moment because I just am interested because of the intersection here. We have outrage and people that are not at work. And so everybody has time to focus on this. But once everybody assumes the regular stress of taking care of yourself, if that energy will be sustained. And I really do hope so, because you can see the movement is only growing bigger because there's so many things that have needed to be addressed, but this seems like a moment where there's attention. And so it seems like everything is just coming out.
Sure. So one of the things that you said during our interview was you talked about taking to the pen, as we called it then, to help you manage when you were feeling a sense of rage or anger or frustration. And I'm wondering how much of that happened this time.
Well, it's interesting. I'm a novelist.
Yes, you are.
A nonfiction writer.
And I don't think I said that I didn't do his whole bio, but Professor Burke is the award-winning author of Team 7.
Thank you. I'm a novelist, and so often, sometimes in a funny way, there's parallels between what I'm writing about and what's going on in real life. And so I'm a big believer in using your emotions in service of your work. And so I studied with the great James McPherson, and one of the things that he really impressed upon me was to be gentle in life so you could be a vicious SOB on the page.
That's awesome.
And so I think, I know that some of those emotions, I have a character right now that is working through a lot of justifiable rage that's misunderstood. And so I usually take that energy and put it in service of the work rather than stewing in an unconstructive way.
So sounds like then you're working on something that's going to be really, a character that's going to be very, very good.
I can say that it's funny, the first book that I had, there was not many white people, but this project is definitely. I can go ahead and say that there's a, I don't know if I call it a race war, but there's a great amount of racial unrest in this project.
Well, you certainly have a huge muse right now in what we're living in. So we're getting some questions from the audience. So Chris Strong says, I heard Ibram Kendi say that we have to turn protests into policy change. Can you speak to the policy changes that are most important to you and share any insights about the process of making that change real?
Okay. Well, I think, to me, I will double down on the wholeness of my people. If you look at Japanese internment camps, if you look at what happened with the Holocaust, these groups, in some form or fashion, in terms of policy, were made whole again. Or at least they were trying to make them whole again. And I feel like the reason that even South Africa had to own apartheid was because they were shamed in front of the world and they had to change. Germany was in front of the world and they had to change. And America has never fully acknowledged what was done to us. And I feel like until that is acknowledged, you can't have reconciliation without truth. And if you want to divine an idea of the truth, you can, but this country was founded by criminals. And I feel like until we even the playing field in terms of, I mean, if there is a denial of giving out shit, there's cancellation of debt, there is giving out free schooling, there is giving out classes that teach about credit, there is also putting equal amounts of money into urban communities so that schools have the proper resources, so that everybody has the same chance. And so I think there are many things that we can do, but it's a panoramic thing. You know, you have to begin to heal what has been going on for generations and generations and generations. And so there's no quick fix to it, but I do believe that it has to start with engaging the adults, but you also have to start by changing the way in which we educate our children. I mean, Black kids are forced to engage with the Eurocentric education system, and our history is relegated to a month. And the rest of the time, European stories just involved with more intricacies. And so how is it that you can take an entire race of greatness, hide it from them, and wonder why you have self-esteem issues and character kinds of things that are pervasive within your own group? It's because this system was not made to make you feel a part of or to make you feel like you're here to shine. So I guess that's why we start.
That's good. Well, part of keep the comments coming. I see people are continuing to join us, so feel free to drop a question in the comments box as we're talking to Professor Burke, the guest daughter who did the episode "The Angry Black Man." Marcus, what I like about what you're saying is that you're thinking about it systemically, and what's good about that is it really encapsulates the fact that racism is not this singular event of somebody screaming the N-word at you from a sidewalk. Now that is certainly racist behavior, but that to really think about it from a systemic place, and education being one of the main ones. And let me just unpack that just a little bit for our listeners. Schools are funded by the tax dollars of the people in that particular district. So what that means is the people who are paying the most taxes, who are making the most money, have the better schools. The problem with that is that some groups have had, white people have had an opportunity to build generational wealth over and over again. And so that there's been a 400-year head start. And then, so we were emancipated, and then there was Jim Crow with sharecropping, and then Jim Crow, and then segregation. And so really, there's not been the true opportunity for growth, except in the last 50 or so years in my lifetime. And it will take that type of change, and I truly believe, I heard Larry, I can't think of his last name right now, say this one time, that it is easy to build something new than it is to dismantle something. And so what you're talking about is building something new. I also think that it is imperative for us to figure out something different for law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it possible that, so think about Rashid Brooks, right?
Mm.
And with Rashid Brooks, he was drunk in a driveway
Mm-hmm.
of a, so did the people with the guns have to go? Or was there someone else? Was there another tier that could have been responsive to him that would have not had him end up dead? So on where I currently work, I think most people know that I am a licensed psychologist. And there are some times that law enforcement intervenes, but sometimes they have me with them because I have the skill set to be able to de-escalate a situation in a way that they can't, because they don't have the skill set. And so and I think if to build something new will help people to stop weaponizing our behavior, because they're not going to get the gun person. They may get a trained social worker or psychologist or tier 2 person, whatever that is. Yeah.
And I also believe that our police are not trained properly. They, like in other countries, you have to go through much more rigorous training to become a police officer. And I feel like if you're going to police an area that you do not naturally have a propensity for dealing with this demographic, you need almost like an entire year and a half of implicit bias training.
I agree.
Implicit bias training, I just feel like they push it, and then they push all the hours of individuals together and try to make it like we did 500 hours of implicit bias training, and that's not actually how it went. And
right.
I think that the reason why so many Black men are getting killed is because there is a baseline fear of Black men.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't protect and serve while you're also afraid of the people that you're supposed to be protecting.
Right.
And that's where, it was it Trevor Noah was saying about the contract of like, they're supposed to protect us, but when they're not protecting us, yeah, something else has to happen. And I think also it's just interesting that when there was a drug epidemic within our demographic, it was a war on drugs, it was police. And now that the opioid crisis is disproportionately affecting the majority, it's a social issue. And I just think that, like, if we're going to call out social issues, we should do so democratically.
I agree. And that would be another kind of systemic way that health disparities are handled differently. And so one addiction is criminalized, and the other addiction is intervened and codified.
Well, and I also think that, okay, we're all aware of mass incarceration. We're now giving out licenses to give brick and mortar to sell cannabis. When are we going to lance the boil of letting out all of those nonviolent offenders that are doing exorbitant amounts of time for having some weed that they are now selling legally in the store? Wow. When are you going to allow that man to have freedom to pursue whatever he wants to pursue? And I think we also need to get right about these felonies. Just because you're a felon doesn't mean you're not an American anymore. And we already know systemically there is a disproportionate amount of Black men that are charged with felonies. So really, systemically, you're taking a great swath of the Black voting ability because of this little system here. And so I feel like it has to be dismantled from many different directions.
Yeah, and I will say, I don't know if the question was directed at me, but since I have the mic, here we go. It is going to require that the people with the privilege step up, use their privilege, interrupt their privilege, and use their voice and their social capital and power to make it different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
So another question came in. It says, great topic to discuss. How do we continue these type of authentic conversations and then move to more policies that uplift our community? Hold on one second, Marcus. Keep your questions coming. We can take a few more. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think the powers that be have to be more willing to listen before attempting to engage. If there is not, I just think there are too many people that are disconnected from our plight, our diaspora, our nuance, our culture, that are sitting there making huge decisions for our community without actually hearing from us or inquiring what it is that we need. Mm-hmm. And so you can't become upset with people when you offer them ill-fitting help they didn't ask for. And I think that that's often what happens, is that, you know, we're told, like, you know, nothing's ever good enough. And I don't think that's the case. I just kind of want to say, well, when do we become human enough to be able to advocate for ourselves in terms of you just asking, what is it you need? Rather than coming up here and saying, this is what you need. Don't say anything otherwise.
Sure. Marcus, I wonder if you could share. I don't want to give away too much of the episode because I want people to go and listen and have the full experience. But I'm wondering if you would be open to sharing about the time that the housekeeping team at a hotel that you were staying threw away your clothes. And what if you could leave it as a cliffhanger for us?
Well,
yeah,
sure. It was over the winter. I was out in Denver doing some research for my novel, and you know, I am a professor, so I have like a research fund now. So I was staying in a very nice hotel, doing some writing and some research. And the day that I was checking out, I was going between my car, just bringing stuff down, coming back, and I was coming back to the room, and there was already a cleaning lady in the room. And I noticed she had thrown some of my things away. And so I stopped and just said, like, man, why are you even in here? And I just said, why are you even in there? Like, this isn't checkout time. And so it was just a moment where I couldn't really gauge what all she'd thrown out, because she was moving fast. And I was kind of flustered because I was already like, what did you just do? And so I said to call her manager up there. When her manager got up there, she pulled the, you know, I guess this might be one of those well-meaning liberal racist moments where she got up there and she tried to be calm, and she said to me, you know, I understand something happened here, but let's not take it out on her. And I thought it was amazing that in that moment, she approached me with fear. And so rather than actually seeing the bones of what was going on here, she felt the need to police my look, my disposition, before she even wanted to engage. And I'm sitting here like, man, my things were thrown away. Your job is to fix this. But before you can even process what's happened, for you to actually take me seriously, you're going to need me to like put a smile on. And I had to make her aware that just because she was afraid didn't mean that she didn't need to like stay focused and do her job.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a great place to stop. If you want to hear what happened, as Marcus shared the love, as he likes to say, I encourage you to go and listen to the episode because it's quite interesting how it's a great example of how healthy cultural paranoia kicked in for him, along with him knowing that that he would need to, as you said, handle it with the utmost civility in order to get the desired outcome. And so we'll just leave that there, and then people can go and listen to the episode. Marcus, can we go back to the George Floyd murder just for a second?
Yeah.
So I interviewed about 20 people following the murders in those couple days where everything was on fire, and tried to get a sense from them about what they were experiencing and feeling. And so part of what people talked about is sleeplessness, upset stomachs, achy bodies, lots of tears, crying for no reason. And I put that in quotes because there was a reason.
Oh, yeah.
Feeling like they didn't know George Floyd, but they knew George Floyd. And I'm wondering how much of that is resonant for you and that you experienced that.
Yeah, I will say that's true. I would say of all the videos, for whatever reason, the George Floyd video was active. It put fire in my bones. When I finished watching that video, that's why I said to you, I knew there was going to be burning and looting, because I knew that within myself, I felt like going outside and breaking something. And so I knew if that's how I felt, I couldn't be the only person. And so I feel like there's times where you have to remind yourself that not everybody is the person that did it. Because there's times that you can have a very short bandwidth for any kind of nonsense on days like that, where you're just really not in the mood, period. And I just think that when a communal agitation has risen that way, and the people that are supposed to protect us are killing us, and even within our own communities, there's not enough ownership. Yeah, it's going to get burnt to the ground, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, and part of what I'm highlighting as well is that some of that is race-based stress, is racial battle fatigue or racial trauma. I mean, whatever you want to name it, that is what it is, and I think that there are the moments of ebbs and flows with that, in the sense of that there are peaks and then there are valleys, and there are times that it feels more salient, like in that kind of event, and times where it's just a humming bass line.
I think also just the simplicity of that situation and how it doesn't make any sense for it to have escalated at all. Even if this man had done everything wrong, like arrest him and take him to jail, there was no reason for it to go there. And I think your everyday Black man could easily have seen himself in that situation. I mean, it was a counterfeit bill. Most counterfeit bills are, you have them unbeknownst to yourself. Like, they are in circulation. And so, like, even if that was the case, anybody could have been in that situation. I could have been in that situation. If somebody called the police on me, I would like to think that it wouldn't escalate there, but I don't have faith in that.
Of course. Very good. So I'm wondering if you think about young men who are trying to manage their anger. I don't know if you saw that video. There was a young teenage guy, and then there was an older, like a middle-aged guy, and then one in the middle, and he was trying to give advice to the younger person, like, this is not how you do this, and this is like, this anger is gonna eat you alive, or that kind of thing. And I'm wondering if you could respond to how to not get eaten alive, or there are moments that that you do. And people can post a couple more questions. We'll be on for a few minutes more, or thoughts or comments before Professor Burke answers this question.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I look at it like this. I tell my young brothers, you need to make a plan for yourself. You need to have some goals, aspirations, and dreams. And it doesn't matter what it is, just be a good one and go at it with 100% your heart. Because if you don't have a plan for yourself, I promise you, these white police got a plan for you. You know, the sitting duck gets plucked. You know what I mean? And there's too many brothers hanging on the corner. You know, I can say for example, there was one time I was in Iowa City and it was cold. It was the winter time, and I saw these young brothers that kind of reminded me of myself and my friends when we were on a Saturday. They looked like they had a basketball. They were just kind of hanging out. And then I watched it. I was in a restaurant and I was just looking out at them. And I saw this cop walk up and said, "I'm sick of you guys. Y'all need to get out of here." And there was a bunch of people in there. So why like these specific children needed to go was beyond me. And the situation escalated to the point that one of the officers snatched one of the boys out of the chair, slammed him on the ground, and arrested him. And when the boy stood up, I saw a teardrop dropping down his face. And that boy couldn't have been no more than 13 years old. And I mean, that's the first time I ever found myself storming into a police station and raid.
Wow.
You know, I was aggravated enough that I walked in there and I said, "Yeah, officers are upstairs arresting black kids for no reason." And they were so horrified they had to take me to the back because they didn't want anybody to hear what I said.
Wow.
And that's where I say, like, you know, it's not an ego thing with the police, it's a life thing. It's about walking away with your life. It's not about having an ego with this cop. Like, screw that cop. You need to live long enough to do what you need to do in this life. And so I just encourage my young brothers to have a plan, to know education is the fastest way to economic stratification, and to know that, you know, the world is very hungry for brothers that are on the right side of things. And it's not always your fault that you're not necessarily seen as being on the right side of things, but I don't know. You must persist in the face of that anyway.
There is a video that has gone viral. I can't believe I'm about to talk about this, but here we go. And this black officer seemingly is arresting this black woman. And she starts singing this song about how he's going to lose his job.
I sent that out this morning. It's one of my favorite things.
And and I mean, if she's carrying on, like telling her friend, "Get this dance," right?
You were about to lose your
job. But what I'm struck by, there was no tasing. There was no throwing her to the ground. There was no treating her like she was threatening in that moment. Now, was she I don't know, a little, I don't know, give me the word linguistics.
You know, she was being a little bit ostentatious.
Okay, we'll go with that. Or not even belligerent, but a little ostentatious.
Yeah, you know, I just say she had a little extra spice in that moment, but you know,
maybe even provocative. How about that?
Yeah, I'd say provocative, but you know, that cop was good to maybe be about to lose his job because they love to detain us for no reason.
Right.
I've been detained for many times for no reason.
but what I'm struck by is that he was not moved, and he was kind of giggling, and you couldn't see him. He was being professional and appropriate. But I was struck by how the non-threatening behavior was perceived for exactly what it was by this black or brown police officer versus times when that same non-threatening behavior could have gotten her tased, shot, beat up, a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen that at work so many times. I remember I was out to lunch one time when I was landscaping, and we had a black waitress come to our table, and I had asked her, I said, you know, can I have some barbecue sauce? And she said, what kind would you like? And when she walked off, one of the white guys sitting there was like, B. He called her a B word. And I was like, the hell was that for? And he was like, she asked you all them questions. And I was like, how would she know what I wanted if she didn't ask? And it was one of those moments where I was like, actually, I think you're out of order. And like I just said, like, I think you're wholly out of order right now. And I think one of the biggest things is that black people, we see each other, and our humanity isn't up for debate amongst each other. We understand that we bleed the same, we feel the same. So
it's not up for debate. That's good.
We don't have to sit there and prove that, like, you know, if you hit me in the head with that baton, it's going to actually hurt. We know that. And so I feel like we sometimes can have a bit more civility with each other because we don't implicitly fear each other in the way, you know, there's times that I've been walking and I just see Black people hanging out. And I know if the wrong person was to see this, this would be threatening. Mm-hmm. And it's just that, you know, you've criminalized the way in which we live, the way in which we have our pastimes, and you've criminalized the signaling of who we are. So that's why we really need to rethink how we police our communities, because at the moment, I think there's too many communities that are dealing with outsiders that are afraid, and you know, ex-military guys that really are eager for combat. They don't need to be policing. They need to be like in the National Guard or somewhere else. But it's just, there's no reason our police department should be so militarized.
So here's a question. Says, when I think about the layers of anger, I think so much about the cognitive dissonance that I assume is happening among BIPOC police officers and about how they are supported or not by their communities. So many layers in that dynamics. Any thoughts about that?
About Black police officers?
Yeah.
We need more of them. God bless them. That is a very corrupt system that needs fundamental change if they would like to attract more brown people to be involved. And I do think that we need more community policing, because we see ourselves, and even when there are disagreements within our own communities, our passion is not scary to us. Mm-hmm. And I think often if you're passionate, you can be looked at as a myriad of things.
Well, I think it's interesting as well that it is oftentimes easy to get drunk with power and or that you are different, right? And you're a different kind of Black person. And no, just people
okay.
that schema.
Okay, I see.
No, not yourself. You regular. So, so I think it is complicated. And one of the interesting things that I am aware of is of internalized racism and the way that it can play a role for our Black and brown police officers as well. Mm-hmm. There's a study that was done by a psychologist. I can't remember what school, but I saw it demonstrated on Inside the Rabbit Hole. And basically, they gave police officers a test where they would have to shoot a suspect who had a cell phone or who had a gun. Mm-hmm. And so certainly the white police officers shot Black men wrongly more frequently. But what's also true is so did the Black police officers.
We shot them too.
That's right. And so what it speaks to is one, implicit bias. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that internalized racism is a real thing. Now, part of what that psychology was purporting is that you don't have to believe a stereotype is true in order to be impacted by it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, to just be impacted by it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, I had a friend that was African, so he hadn't been in the U.S. very long. And we were talking, well, he's a person I knew. But anyway, he was a person that was confused by racism and slightly amused by the idea of it. And he was just kind of like, oh, I don't experience it, you know, kind of, I wish someone, and I had to say to him, like, my man, I can promise you that this will find you, and when it does, there will be nothing amusing about this moment for you. And it's just interesting because when he did have that moment, he reiterated the fact that it broke his heart so much that he found himself crying.
So Dr. Maria Munoz says, hi, Professor Marcus. Great to see you via video. How's your mom? She says, stay safe and keep rocking it. Is your mother watching tonight?
I think she may be watching tonight. I know
Hi,
I sent her the video, so if my mother is watching, hello, mother.
Hey, Mother. Well, if not, she'll be able to watch it on the rebroadcast. I got another question that says, can you recommend any books and or authors for teenage boys? She runs it's Toya King, runs a teen mentoring program for at-risk teens.
Okay. There's a lot of black men right now. Is she looking for nonfiction or fiction or just regular books?
She just said books. She said books.
In general.
So
I mean, I can give some authors' names that she should look up their work.
Okay, go for it.
Naomi Jackson is a black woman writing right now. So Naomi Jackson, Alexia Arthurs, Jamel Brinkley, Deshaun Winslow. Myself, Marcus Burke, I have a book that is about a black teenage young man. I don't actually just think that books about black kids only apply to black kids. I think we also need to give black kids a moment to read about their histories. And I think sometimes that can be effective through fiction. So, I mean, there's writers like Angela Flournoy. There's writers like Ayanna Mathis. There's writers like Donald Goines, who is a very gritty writer, but he's written some of my favorite literature. There is Iceberg Slim, who wrote good books. You know, I don't necessarily think that you were going to want his, I don't know if you want to give those to your teenage boys, but he wrote good books. James Baldwin, Chester Himes. Whew, I could go on. James Allen McPherson.
Oh, of course. So, you know what I think about is Stamped from the Beginning. And it's a big old book, right? It could be intimidating, but really it contextualizes race in a way that really helps them to understand that while it may feel personal, the racism that is happening to them is more systemic than anything.
Right. There's also a great book by a writer named James McBride called The Color of Water.
Yes.
And
yes, that's a good one.
A great one to read. Jesmyn Ward put together a great collection of essays that also would be very helpful to read. Dana Johnson is a writer that has a book called Break Any Woman Down. It's a short story collection. I adore her work. But I could go on, so I'll stop there.
Okay, that's good. So I think we are turning towards the end here, and I wanted to know if unless somebody wants to throw up a question really fast, but I'll give you a minute to collect your thoughts to see if anybody else wants to share anything or ask anything. Last thing you want to say about the podcast or about your experience with it, or about the current state of the country or Black America or whatever.
Is there any questions, Mike?
Nope.
Well, I guess if anything, I hope that we as a country can keep this energy and continue to force for accountability. I guess I was talking about propaganda because I understand that we're loud, breaking things and spraying things, but just understand Breonna Taylor's killers are still walking the streets. And so we need to stay focused on actual justice and not just making people uncomfortable and scared, but actually locking people up that need to be locked up and letting free the Black men that need to have a chance to live a life and re-engage with their family and community. I guess that'll be my last thoughts.
That's beautiful. You know, I want to say this is about more than pancake mascots.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you so much to my listeners for listening. Thank you to Professor Burke for donating even more time to the cause of Being the Dot. Make sure that if you haven't gotten a chance to get on to Stitcher, Google Podcast, or iTunes Podcast and download Being the Dot podcast, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, as that will get it more traction and get the word out to folks Join us next Sunday live at 5. We'll be doing something different, and I'll let you know more about that soon. Charlie Tuff says, "Nice work, buddy." Have a great one. Have a great one. Enjoy the Sunday and go listen to the podcast. Right now, that's what's on there is children talking about their responses to George Floyd. I asked them the same questions I asked Professor Burke, as well as one of our sisters who works out in Hollywood, talking about telling Black stories. One of the things that you mentioned the day after an event is also the subject of like the day after event that's very, very, very racial. And how do you go to work the next day, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
it's a good episode. Dr. Michael Mobley is our guest for that. But just stay tuned for what's coming for all of us with Being the Dot, where it's more than a podcast. It's this community. Happy Sunday evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you to you for doing this. We really do.
I appreciate it. MG Bertolf said, "Thanks for the space and conversation." You know him?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Very good. So you get support out there, bro. That's good.